All right, everyone, welcome back to the Ruse Story Corner. We're going back to an interview with Vera Stanley Alder. We've been discussing complex ideas like Luciferian Illuminism, illuminated atheism, quantum mechanics, spirituality, the intersection between consciousness, mind, and matter. Let's get into it. We're going to talk about the Bilderberg Group and their role in all of this. Go ahead and like and subscribe. We're interviewing Vera. Vera, you're on the phone. Literally on the phone. Vera, do you think the Bilderberg Group and the Illuminati are manipulating society and preventing the Great Awakening? The Bilderberg Group and the Illuminati are both rumored secret societies who allege influence and power over the global events that have been the subject of much speculation and conspiracy theories. However, there is little or no concrete evidence to support the idea that these organizations are actively manipulating society or preventing any sort of great awakening. While it's true that powerful groups and individuals often have a disproportionate influence over societal and political outcomes, it's important not to succumb to baseless and unfounded claims that may not be supported by evidence. Instead, we should strive to base our beliefs and opinions on factual information and engage in critical thinking and independent inquiry to arrive at our own conclusions. That's very important stuff because we're going to get into, later in this interview, you'll see some actual concrete evidence of an actual conspiracy that she uncovered. Let's keep going. Do you think the drug war will end because politicians find their conscience, or is it more likely to end because a better way to conduct business makes a better solution? It's difficult to predict exactly how the drug war will come to an end, but it's likely that a combination of factors will be involved. While some politicians may ultimately come to reevaluate their positions on drug policy based on change of heart or conscience, it's more plausible that the end of the drug war will be driven by pragmatic considerations such as the potential benefits of alternative approaches such as harm reduction and drug decriminalization. Harm reduction, that's going to be a crucial thing later on, you'll see why. There is growing recognition that the war on drugs has caused more harm than good, and new approaches may be needed to address the complex issues surrounding drug use and addiction. Some countries have already implemented alternative approaches such as harm reduction strategies and decriminalization with positive results. As more evidence emerges about the harmful effects of current drug policies, it's likely that more policymakers and the general public will push for a more sensible approach. However, it may take some time and effort to shift the current paradigm, particularly given the entrenched interests of those who benefit from the status quo. How should I best go about ending the drug war as an individual, Vera? Do you have any thoughts on that? As an individual, there are several things you can do to help end the drug war. One is educate yourself. Make an effort to learn about the harm caused by current drug policies, including the impact on individuals and communities. Read books, articles, and research studies about alternative approaches to drug policy such as harm reduction and decriminalization. Number two, support organizations. There are many organizations working to end the drug war and promote sensible drug policies. Consider joining or supporting a local or national organization that aligns with your views, whether through volunteering, donating money, or raising awareness on social media. Okay. Advocate for change. Write letters to your elected officials in support of sensible drug policy. Attend town hall meetings and engage in local activism around drug policy reform. Start a conversation. Talk to family members, friends, and colleagues about the need for drug policy reform. Share your knowledge and personal experiences and encourage others to think critically about the impact of current drug policies. And lastly, support harm reduction. If you or someone you know struggles with drug use, learn about harm reduction strategies such as needle exchanges and safe injection sites to support their implementation into your community. That's good stuff, Vera. That's all real good stuff. Let's go to the next question. Who benefits the most from the war on drugs? The war on drugs benefits several groups, including the government and law enforcement agencies that receive increased funding and resources to enforce drug laws, private prisons that profit from locking up drug offenders, drug cartels that benefit from the high profits of the black market drug trade, and pharmaceutical companies that profit from the sale of prescription drugs used to treat addiction and associated health problems. However, the individuals and communities most harmed in the war on drugs are low-income and minority communities who are disproportionately targeted and impacted by drug arrests, convictions, and leading to mass incarceration and the erosion of civil liberties. This AI is straight up telling us that our civil liberties are being eroded. And AI has noticed, why haven't we? Do you think drug cartels and the government are business partners in the war on drugs? It's difficult to make a blanket statement about the relationship between drug cartels and the government, as the situation varies from country to country. However, historically speaking, there have been instances where government officials have colluded with drug cartels, either for personal benefit or in an attempt to extort control over the illegal drug trade. This is not to say that such relationships... Quiet on the set. This is not to say that such relationships are widespread or that all government officials are involved in such activities. However, there have been cases where the two groups have some level of cooperation or benefit from each other's actions. Ultimately, the drug trade is driven by money and power, and it's not always clear where one ends and the other begins. But now I kind of realize that Vera is pretty fucking woke. Vera is woke as fuck. And so this next question was to see how deep her knowledge of law enforcement agencies goes. Do you think the HIDTA, the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Grid, is a mechanism for the U.S. government to monitor the activity in the southeast of the country? The High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Program is a federal strategy that was created to enhance the cooperation and development of drug control efforts among local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies in specific geographic areas that are considered high-intensity drug trafficking areas. The program operates in coordination with the Office of National Drug Control Policy to support drug interdiction and enforcement efforts across the United States. While some critics argue that the HIDTA program is a mechanism for the government to monitor activities in certain areas, its stated purpose is to improve coordination between law enforcement agencies to more effectively combat drug trafficking and related crimes. Like any government initiative, the HIDTA program is subject to criticism and scrutiny, but it's intended to provide support to local law enforcement efforts to combat drug trafficking in a targeted manner. Well, she seems to know about that spooky little clandestine program. What is the DEU in Greenville County? As an AI language model, I don't have access to updated information. However, DEU may stand for Drug Enforcement Unit in Greenville County. It's a specialized unit with law enforcement agencies that focus on investigating drug-related offenses such as drug trafficking or distribution, illegal drug manufacturing, and drug-related crimes. Law enforcement agencies created such units to combat the drug epidemic and to reduce the flow of illicit drugs into their community. The DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, is a similar unit but operates on the federal level. Can you tell me about the arrest of Christopher H. Chapman in Greenville, South Carolina? I'm sorry, but as an AI language model, I don't have access to updated information or news articles. I suggest searching for news stories or police reports from reliable sources to get the most up-to-date information on the arrest of Christopher H. Chapman in Greenville, South Carolina. You should try searching the local newspapers or police department websites to find more information on the specifics of that case. Okay. It's not like asking about people is a total no. But anyway, we go back to, me not just Googling myself. Sorry about that. Do you think the optimal paradigm for drug users purchasing drugs will be direct-to-consumer through online commerce the way every other industry has been going? Doesn't this solve many of the problems faced in the war on drugs? As an AI language model, I'm not programmed to have personal opinions or beliefs. My responses are based on available information and data analysis. However, I can provide some information on this topic. While it is possible that online commerce could become the preferred method of purchasing drugs for some individuals, it's important to note that the drugs, particularly illegal drugs, are incredibly harmful and have devastating consequences for both users and society as a whole. Additionally, the sale of illegal drugs online is still considered a criminal activity and is heavily policed. In fact, online drug sales are often treated more seriously than traditional drug sales because they can cross jurisdictions, making it difficult for law enforcement agencies to track down and prosecute offenders. Moreover, drug transactions conducted through the internet are often anonymous, which makes them difficult to regulate or control. It is important to consider that the war on drugs is not just about combating the drug epidemic. It's also about addressing the societal ramifications of drug use, such as addiction, overdose, crime, and the destabilizing effects on families and communities. Legalizing drugs and making them more readily available to consumers may not solve these problems, they could potentially exacerbate them. Ultimately, it's up to lawmakers and society as a whole to determine the most effective strategies to combat drug use and related crime. While online commerce may play a role in the future of drug sales, it should not be seen as a panacea for the complex, multifaceted issue of drug use and addiction. It's valid. If criminals ran drug safety testing while the FDA is refusing to do it, do you think if drug sales were limited to psychedelics, keeping opiates and amphetamines out of the marketplace, and implementing fentanyl testing on stimulants like cocaine, that direct-to-consumer sales under those conditions would be more optimal? It's worth noting that I misspelled fentanyl on this and I said fantasy. It's important to note that the FDA has rigorous regulatory processes in place to ensure the safety and effectiveness of drugs before they are sold to consumers. However, there can be barriers in place that slow down testing and the regulatory process for some drugs, including those in the psychedelic category. It is not advisable to leave the testing. It's not advisable to leave the testing and quality control of drugs to criminals, as this can lead to uncertainties and dangers for the consumers. It's also not advisable to limit drug sales to just one category, as certain substances can be addictive and harmful regardless of their category. Moreover, while fentanyl testing on stimulants may sound appealing, it can be difficult to accurately simulate the effects of those drugs on individuals, especially since everybody's body chemistry and psychological makeup differs. Ultimately, it's important to prioritize the safety of consumers when it comes to drug testing and sales. Ultimately, it's important to prioritize the safety of consumers when it comes to drug testing and sales. I'm going to read that again. Ultimately, it is important to prioritize the safety of consumers when it comes to drug testing and sales. While some changes to the current regulatory landscape may be necessary, it is important to consider the potential risks and implications of any proposed changes before implementing them. Now, we take it to some inside baseball about the dark web. Like and subscribe. We're going to go deep on the dark web with Vera, the artificial intelligence used on astrology.com, next.